All right, welcome back. It's been a while. Want to do a video about temperatures in your fruiting room and a little bit about harvesting and parameters. So it's been in the 60s. I think I went in here at 63. It's gone up a little bit because I have the doors open. But it's August. It's about 95 today, I think, something like that, in Wichita, Kansas. And we're keeping the fruiting room around 60 to 63. And that is super important. You know, when you're sucking in all the 10 exchanges per hour or whatever your room requires to keep your CO2 down, that's a lot of hot air, a lot of BTUs you got to cool down. And if you aren't keeping your fruiting room in the 60s, really in the low 60s, you're not growing quality products. You're more than likely going to be dealing with bacteria, all kind of blotch, and also fungus gnats, fruit flies, all those kind of little guys. They will populate a lot faster when it's warmer out, and they will thrive. Another pointer on the flies, fruit flies and gnats and all that kind of stuff. Have a bug zapper in your fruiting room. That's an outdoor rated bug zapper. That one's made in the US even. But yeah, you gotta keep it cool in here or you're never gonna have it going right. So we had our HRV system go down and we had disaster. It was getting up into the 70s. We had blotch. It was really bad. And then I realized what was going on. We had one of the exchangers blew out over the winter time. So when it came to high heat, we weren't cooling enough. So I fixed that. That was like in July. But you know, you got to make sure that you keep it cold. You got to make sure you have enough BTUs. If you don't have enough air conditioning, consider an HRV system. This is a heat exchanger. That one's on the exhaust. I have another 2 on the intake stacked up. I'll make a whole nother video about that, about the new system. But yeah, keeping your fruiting room cold, so important. Probably one of the most important thing that a lot of people try to fudge, and they're like, oh, but I'll just, you know, it'll be okay, 60, 75, 80, whatever. I've heard of people fruiting the 90s. Like, I can't even imagine what a fruiting room looks and smells like in the 90s. Like, the spores are rotting on the floor. I don't even want to smell that. So yeah, keep it cool. Another part I want to talk about is harvesting. So it gets pretty wet in here. You know, the misters go on every like hour and a half, something like that, for like 2 or 3 minutes, not very long. We're running the high pressure misters. This is a 0.13 gallons per minute. We got 4 nozzles, and they are 0.008 inches. Was it 8 thousandths, which is not a lot of water, but it builds up. And especially when you're cooling down all that humid air, depending on your climate. I have very humid air coming in. When you're cooling that down, what happens is it's already at 70 or 80% humidity. You drop the temperature, that saturation point goes up. So it's coming in at fully saturated in your makeup air. You know, the air that's coming from outside is being cooled down on your way in. And that's the way you want to do it. So the issue with that is it doesn't really dry out very well in here. But which is fine for growing the mushrooms. Like you want a wet dry cycle, but you don't want it to go bone dry. So it's okay that your air coming in is pretty wet. But when it comes time to harvest, you don't want soaking wet mushrooms that when you touch them, there's like water on them. So this morning I came out here, I saw, hey, I got some stuff I need to pick. Some of these might get harvested, those are gonna get harvested. I turned off my humidification, stopped misting. And it started to dry the mushrooms out. But at the same time, you don't want the room to get too dry. So about 2 or 3 hours ago, and right now it's like 3 o'clock, it's in the afternoon. It's taking a long time for the room to dry out. I even wetted the floor because I didn't want to put the misters on and soak these guys, but say these baby lion's manes up here, which are not ready for their day or two, I don't want them to start drying out too much. So you can play around with wetting your floors, wetting your walls, things like that. You can even mist, like these guys, they got a little misting the other day because it was a little bit dry in here for them. Everything else was being harvested, so I sprayed them down. And I got a really good pin set on this rack, not so much over here. I just moved them down there. They were up top. And that'll transition into another thing. You'll find there's zones, right? There's high airflow, low airflow. Like we know that our front and back rows are the driest. So that's where you see we have the lion's manes over here, all right? And then we also have them over here, because in the middle, this is all where the humidification is coming down. The fans are battling each other. We have a fan there, a fan right above me. I don't want to drop my camera. So a lot of the humidity kind of stays in the middle when the misters do kick on, which is fine for king oysters. It's fine for your elms and your blue oysters, but not so much your lion's manes. You'll notice with lion's manes, I don't think, this one you can kind of see got a little bit wet on the top, possibly up here. You can see us balding on the top, especially if they have blotchy brown spots. We don't have any in here because we have it set up right, but you'll notice that you'll have like blotchy spots and balding on the top if it gets wet. So a couple of things to look out for. So yeah, the main thing is get your temperatures down, get the proper air conditioning. Don't sacrifice, you know, if you don't have enough air conditioning, don't starve them. Don't make them, not starve them, but don't suffocate them. Don't have them be too high CO2 because then your quality's down. So your thing with that would be like, maybe don't do a second flush. Do first flush only and then get them out, because less blocks in fruiting means lower CO2. If you're going for that second flush, but that also means that your room capacity is higher now, your room fill is higher, your CO2 is going to be higher, your tonnage can't keep up with your air conditioning tonnage, the BTUs per hour, 12,000 BTUs is 1 ton. So if that can't keep up with it, just drop your total block count, which means do first flush and done, or maybe don't do your really long ones like king oyster or chestnut or maitake, for example, is a really long one. So these are all mushrooms that take weeks to fruit, you know, 2-3 weeks to fruit, whereas lion's mane oyster mushrooms, especially elm oyster mushroom, are done in like a week and less, and then they're out. So it's a quicker cycle, less blocks queued up in fruiting. So yeah, I want to talk just a little bit about that. Hopefully that'll help some of you growers out. I know it's a little bit late in the season to be telling you what temperature you want to be for the summertime, but you definitely don't want to be in the 70s. You absolutely do not want to be in the 80s or 90s. Like, that's disaster. So yeah, hopefully you like this video. I haven't been shooting a lot just because we've been busy. We tried to take a little vacation, but it ended up being like a work vacation. We're back now. Summertime's over. Eric goes back to school tomorrow. So back to it. We have new employees coming on board starting next week. And yeah, it's going to be a new era of Myers Mushrooms coming up pretty soon, because whole new crew, and it should be interesting. We're going to hopefully get the spawn production up and running. It's been forever. The autoclave is still broken. I broke the boiler like in the wintertime when I was heating with it, and my fault, but I got to fix that. And then once that's up and running, we'll be doing spawn. So stay tuned for that. Until then, bags, flow hoods, sealers, we got it. We got everything you guys need for mushroom supplies and equipment, so hit me up. If you guys need batch mixers, baggers, consulting, hit me up. So myersmushrooms.com. Thanks for your support. Thanks for all my Patreon supporters, and y'all have a good day. Keep on mushrooming.